Hello and welcome to UC Today. We are back for another big UC news show, and I'm joined by another panel of experts. Welcome, everyone. Let's just do a very quick introduction around the room. Who do we have today? Blair Pleasant, welcome. Craig Durr, Evan Kirstel, Dominic Black, John Arnold, and our newbie, Faye Bennett. Welcome to the show, everyone. And of course, my co-host for today's show, Mr. Kieran Devlin. It's great to have you back. Kieran, should we get straight into some news? What is top of our agenda today?
Yeah, thanks, David. So I guess one of the most eye-catching pieces of news recently was that AWS or Amazon is shuttering Chime, their UCaaS offering, from February 2026. This was preceded earlier last week, at the time of recording, by a story that Zoom had been adopted as the platform of choice by Amazon for internal meetings. Now, maybe this isn't particularly surprising in isolation, but I guess in a wider context, it is quite interesting, with Verizon BlueJeans closing in 2023, with Meta Workplace closing last year, and Zoom being the choice of migration partner there. Is this just a case in itself of a solution being left behind and a vendor acknowledging that? Or is this signal something maybe more substantial about UC consolidation and commoditization? Blair, what do you think?
I think all of the above. I think, none of us were shocked by this announcement. Amazon Chime, when it first came out, everyone's like, wow, this is really cool, and Amazon's in the game. But they never really made headway with it. I don't know if it's because there were other products doing similar things, or if Amazon just didn't put its weight behind it the way it's doing with like Connect and some other products. But it just never really got that, real adoption. I know Nextiva for a while was using it. They were reselling it as their collaboration product, but then they came out with their own, and you just never really heard about it. So it's really not a surprise to anybody. So what was surprising was actually what they told people, internally. So it's not only, that they're turning to Zoom, but it's also Teams. And I think there was something else in the mix. So it was really a hodgepodge, and it was very confusing. So you would think that they would say, okay, we're all, going to be using Zoom, or we're all going to be, doing this. But it was really a hodgepodge, and it seemed kind of confusing for their internal users. But they are still continuing with the Amazon Chime SDK. So companies who are using that will still be able to continue with that. Again, I'm not sure how many customers that really impacts, but they did make it clear that they're going forward with that. So yeah, I think it's coming down to, I don't want to say a 2 or 3 company business, but yeah, we've got, Zoom and Teams are, certainly the leaders, and companies are consolidating on that. And as we're going to be talking about, even Zoom and Teams, they're expanding to contact center. It's all about AI. They're expanding, UC is just a small part of what they're doing. It's more collaboration, video, contact center, everything surrounding it. So I think the industry is changing, and if you can't keep up with these leaders, either, find something to really differentiate, or, get off the boat or whatever.
I'll jump in. I agree with you, Blair. The growth trajectory of UC as a platform is kind of flattened, and there's such a lot of sunk cost for these other organizations to continue to build out those workflows. I mean, make sure you have chat that works with a video, that you actually have on-premises room solutions, for example. And some of these other platforms like Chime and some other ones, I didn't really have that full across the board unified experience as well too. But it's slowed up, and I think the evidence is that as we've seen companies like Zoom, we're seeing Webex, we're even seeing Microsoft looking for ancillary growth opportunities. Contact center, a lot of them are all adding this on as well too. So I think it's core. I think it's a big investment to maintain, but it's not the growth trajectory that everyone needs.
I've got a question, just maybe one for Dom. But obviously, at the enterprise level, we're seeing the UC race sort of basically come down to 3 key players. But when you get into mid-market and smaller businesses as well, there are a plethora of providers there, hundreds of providers. Are we likely to see a similar kind of consolidation there, commoditization? Dom, what's your take on that?
In the SME and mid-market space, I don't think Teams hasn't been as prevalent down then. A number of small businesses that we survey over time, and they go, well, look, it's not relevant. It's not a relevant product for us. We're looking for phone system. We're looking for contact center. Our latest studies show businesses under 50 employees, one of their top priorities is improving customer services. And that wasn't really relevant, or that wasn't something that was accessible over the last few years, just because the price of contact center didn't really scale down to that. So, but now there's a lot of smaller contact center providers who are serving the SME space. And you look at what RingCX is doing, you look at what Cisco Webex Essentials is doing for the contact center space, serving those smaller contact centers, as well as those contact center light solutions. And there's a whole host of small CX companies serving that. But from the UCaaS side, I still think there's a lot of opportunity, and you're still seeing a lot of growth from, let's say, the tier 2 vendors outside of Microsoft, Webex, and Zoom. There's still a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of growth out there. You're looking at a lot of markets. They're still very on-prem focused, especially across Europe. So, yeah, big opportunities there for others to take a role. And I think from a European standpoint, we've started to hear, especially on mainland Europe, some murmurings around, well, what does the geopolitical landscape look like? Do we still want to invest in American products if we're going to start getting tariffs placed on us? If we're further to the east, what happens with Russia in the long term as well? And do we want to move things to the cloud? If critical infrastructure starts getting hit, is that going to be a problem? So I think there's some big challenges around there for some of those businesses. You look at everyone talking around AI as well. Small businesses are nervous about that. Central Europe is nervous about data sovereignty and what happens there. So I still think there's a huge role to play for a lot of the other vendors in this space, and not just European ones, but even ones out in the US. Look at NetSapiens and Allianza, still growing strongly, still adding a lot of users, still bringing on partners. I think the big thing for me is it's the world is less about technology now. It's around the go-to-market where people are successful. So, yeah, where Chime, I think, failed was not the product was bad. The product was probably all right. But was Amazon's go-to-market approach in taking that to the right buyers the right way forward? I would tend to say maybe not.
Well, it was mostly in their marketplace, right? I mean, that was how they were doing it. They wanted to continue to sell AWS credits. And that's kind of what it was designed for. Dom, you brought up a great point. I apologize. I didn't think about that. But the European market, especially within country, does have a lot of players. But here's a challenge I've always wondered about in those markets is the interoperability story. I mean, some of the major players have bridged the islands through solutions like Direct Connect or third-party things like Pexip. I would still think that would be a limiter to growth.
Well, I think there's are any of the ones that if I look at some of the Europeans, are they going to have world domination, let's say, to the scale that we've seen Zoom and Teams have? No, but some of these businesses carve out a very good business just being local. You talk to some of them who've run their own asterisk switch and still generating significant dollars at the end of each year, which is going to their founders' pockets. Do they want to grow much bigger? Probably, but it's not relevant to them. They're quite happy on that base and growing where they are. So yeah, I think that there's levels of success that people are going to get to. I still think there's a big role for that. And I think the big thing that I see, and I think the advice that we're giving a lot of these providers and channels as well, is look at how you're going to differentiate through verticals, because being a wide-based SME play or wide-based enterprise play is good, but it's going to get commoditized. You get into a vertical properly, suddenly you're no longer the UCaaS solution in there. You are the communication solution that works throughout every workflow. That's where I think the value is for a lot of these businesses going forward is down the vertical play.
I just like to add bigger picture. It's not like Chime is new and didn't get traction. They've been in the market a long time. And to me, more importantly, before Teams became so dominant from the pandemic. And so they've been in the game long enough to have had a chance to do something about it. But now it's too late. I mean, the top players are too entrenched for them to really be able to move the needle anyway. And it's frankly not a business I think they need to be in or really can make a lot of money in. AWS is a much, much bigger story for them. And as you say, contact center at least has opportunity there that the UCaaS space I don't think really offers it to make it interesting enough for Amazon to kind of stay and try to become the big player that everyone thinks they should be.
So, with that, shall we move on to our next story? Our next one is an Avaya story, and Avaya is an ongoing sort of concern for everyone in the room. We're all sort of been connected in one way or another, but the latest news has been around they're going to cease to support contact centers on the AXP of less than 200 seats. Now, this may be a so what story, but it does seem to align with Patrick Dennis's sort of global 1500 approach. Of course, these are the global 1500 enterprises, very large companies. What do we think, Kieran? Take us through the headlines there.
Yeah, where to begin, David? As you outlined, they have mapped out that focus on large-scale contact centres by removing support for centres with fewer than 200 seats. Before that, we had more layoffs. Avaya again reduced their headcount, particularly in the UK and in the Middle East, and it also confirmed it was closing its Middle East office. It has been quite the month for Avaya news. Dom, where to begin? What's your take on the latest at Avaya?
I think it's been another step in a journey in the same direction, in my opinion. I think it's been I don't think their story has been about growth for a long time. I think it's been about maintaining that base and making sure they can squeeze as much life out of that as long as possible. And I think this announcement is another one. Look at sub 200 contact center market. It's a great opportunity for everyone else out there to go after that base. And I know a lot of people are very interested in it and going after that quickly. But yeah, for Avaya, was it worth the support, etc., the tech teams needed to keep in place there to actually keep those running? They made the decision that it's not. I think the challenge is Avaya making a decision like that, in my eyes, is surely that's been on the cards for 4 or 5 years, that this is not a profitable bit or not something they want to invest in. Why didn't they sell it off? Cutting it down like that just only exacerbates the vision that Avaya is making cuts where they have to, making decisions which are impacting customers where they have to, which are opening up opportunities. If they were able to sell that off, maybe raise some money on the process, maybe refocus around that, allow their customers to go on a journey. I mean, they've got a partnership with Zoom in that to help on that space. So would have expected something there. I look at their statement, was it disruption, innovation without disruption? If I was a person with a sub 200 contact center seat, I'd be fairly frustrated if they keep telling me it's innovation without disruption, because that doesn't seem to match there. So I think it's a managed decline. It's going to continue to decline throughout that strategy, focusing on the 1,500 biggest customers because they're too big. They're not going to leave because it's too integrated. It's a story that is going to play out, that they're suddenly going to go, well, over time, they're going to disappear. So over time, we'll see more cuts. Do we expect to see more people leaving? It's great trying to service those biggest customers. But if you're internal at Avaya and sat there going, well, they keep cutting all these products, one of these other contact center vendors comes knocking on your door saying, hey, why do you come over? There's going to be a skill shortage at some time to actually deliver to those biggest customers as well. So I worry for the long-term future of what that looks like. Will it be 3 strikes and out with a final bankruptcy in a few years? Who knows? But that's my opinion of it. Don't know if anyone else has any less opinionated views, maybe.
Yeah, if I can add something. So they did say in their announcement that for the people who don't want to pay for the 200 seats, they can either terminate their current subscription or shift to forthcoming additional innovative cloud and on-premises solutions for seamless customer migration. But they didn't say what those innovations were. So do you hang on and wait to see what this is going to be, or do you jump ship now? So I thought that was really weird. If you're saying, well, you can hang on for what we're going to be announcing, but we're not announcing it yet. It's, kind of, what is it? Shoot first and aim later. It just seemed like a weird way to do it. So you would think that they would have these innovative, solutions first and then say, okay, you have a choice, rather than doing it this way. So I thought that was really odd.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, I guess, to Dom's point, I think sometimes a strategy around those kind of moves are, kind of reduce our customer base and then be able to focus more intently on those huge accounts, and actually drive more business and more share of wallet from those major accounts. But to Dom's point, there's always a risk of, you cut staff, you cut skill set, and then, do you find yourself in a position where actually they're, your biggest revenue earners are at risk? And it's kind of going to be interesting to see how that plays out, I think.
I mean, this definitely plays to their strategy about focusing on the global 1500. And, if you have 200 seats or less, you're most likely not a global 1500. So it makes sense from that perspective. And, so they are going along with their strategy. So I can't, blame them for that. There are other things I can say, I don't get, but this does make sense in the scheme of what their strategy is with the global 1500.
I guess the saving kudos is they didn't go the Broadcom route and just say we're going to raise prices. They didn't suck as much as Broadcom in terms of treating those customer base there. So,
well, there's also a reason Broadcom is one of the biggest market caps in the world, because they know how to leverage technology. Maybe they could learn a thing or two. But even I really wonder how long the global 1500 will hang on, and what they're thinking right now and what they do next. I would be curious what options they have. No one is locked in perpetually to any technology. It's just time and effort to make some strategic decisions. So we shall see.
I think to add to that as well, it's the global 1500 are sat there, but I would imagine 90% plus of those have been delivered by partners. And you think if you're a partner sat there with your relationship with Avaya, I would tend to expect that most of those partners have got other relationships with other contact center vendors, and will be looking at their relationships through there and going, well, where are we going to be positioning our customer? How do we make our customer the happiest? How do we make sure they're future-proof for the future? I don't know what those partners will be saying to Avaya customers in the long run around that as well.
Exactly, because Global 1500 isn't going to be static. They're going to look at this new feature sets coming from AI and everything else, and they're going to want that investment from their contact center. So it seems the stickiness is tied to the lift of getting them off their current platform to another. But I think the need for all the productivity gains, all the efficiency gains in contact centers that AI is driving right now are going to really threaten that 1500 unless they actually continue to show some R&D.
Yeah, I think what'll happen is, once the dominoes start to fall, it will kind of pick up its own momentum. It's a little bit like companies were afraid to, announce back to office mandates, right? Well, once one starts, the others kind of get the courage to do it too. And I think it'll be the same thing here. Once a few of those partners find better partners to take those companies forward, the others will feel a little more comfortable going that route. And then I think it could happen very quickly.
So, should we move on to our next topic? And that is, of course, RingCentral's event this week. I know a few of you in the room were in attendance. I wasn't there, and in fact, we weren't there as UC today. So, I'm very interested in what you all learned. Who's going to take this one? John, do you want to give us a bit of an overview? What did you learn from RingCentral this week?
Well, that the French Laundry is the place to go if you have money and connections. So, for as big which we did not do, but we did get to walk by it. So, that was my first actual visit to Napa. And Craig, I love the photo you took of the Napa City Limits sign. We passed it on the way out to the airport. I said, "Oh, you must have had a good walk to get there." It's a really tiny, small place, and why they take us to these places is a bit of a mystery, because really it's a long way from the airport in San Francisco to go. And we didn't get any wine tour experience. Oh, you want to talk about RingCentral? I was there for the food and the wine. Yeah. So Air is kind of the big story to get the ball rolling there. So that's their AI receptionist. They made a lot. The problem with Ring is that they had all these big announcements all at once ahead of the event. So they had AI reception, the news about Kira being pushed up to president, and they also had earnings results and a lot of CX developments. So the problem is when everyone's making noise at the same time, It's hard to keep track of everything. But I think receptionist is a good starting point. I think it's a little misleadingly named because you make it think it's just for receptionists, but they can find all kinds of use cases. But it's basically an agentic AI offering that allows small businesses to have an automated reception function that can actually do things. So there are tons of small businesses that really can't justify having a live person. And frankly, who goes into real businesses anymore? So there isn't a need to have one. But of course, like dental clinics, that was a demo that they did was really good. That showed, okay, well, I can do everything with this bot. And it sounds very realistic. The demo that they did, and it handled kind of softball questions pretty well. But it's just kind of showing a proof of concept. I think that there is a need for this, and they seem to be getting. I think they said they have 2,000 customers already using it, something like that. So it will get its play for sure, and I think that will probably be renamed at some point. But they did not. I asked them about the voice itself, like how do they generate the voice? They were pretty coy about that, but it's clearly, an AI generated voice. It's not some like real receptionist that used to work there doing the voiceover. But anyways, it's an interesting offering, and it starts to move the needle away from just desk-based productivity applications to more like, frontline stuff that has a lot of value as well. And you guys saw the same thing, right? So Craig and Blair.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically showing what can be done with AI agents. It was their first agentic AI or AI agent application. And, it does more than just, it's sort of, an AI IVR, if you will. So it can, answer questions, what are your hours, what are your locations, what services do you provide, things like that. And then if the caller wants to speak to somebody, either an individual or someone in a department, it can route that person, to the right individual or department. And, the idea is making it really easy. But what impressed me the most about that was having it, watching it get set up. I mean, basically there were like 8 steps and boom, you're done. And it was very, very simple. And I'll be writing an article about this. And I got a video of how you set it up, and I'll be including that in the article, because that, to me, that was what made it different. It was just like, as I said to Kira, even I could do it, which, and I'm not technical at all. So that part impressed me. And again, to John's point, I think it's a proof of concept of what can be done with agentic AI, and we'll be seeing a lot more about that. To me, the big story at RingCentral was, RingCX. So RingSense, their AI product, that's embedded everywhere and is going across all their products. But RingCX, their contact center product, is really doing well. And to be clear, they still sell, they still work with NICE, they still sell, the NICE CX product. But for simpler, non-complex, non-sophisticated, needing a gazillion bells and whistles types of solutions, they do have their own RingCX, and they're doing well with it. I think they said they have over 700 customers, and over 50% of those are using AI. And again, the idea is, easy to deploy, simple to use. It's not going to have, all the integrations and WFO and things like the NICE product has, but for a certain segment of the market, this can be disruptive, especially at $65 a seat. So they're really making headway with the RingCX, and I had asked, during an exec panel, when do you see leading with CX instead of EX? What they call their basically UC products is now EX, and they were kind of coy about it, saying, EX is what we're known for and what our strength is. But I got the impression from some private discussions with people that I can see in a few years, going the way of, Dialpad and 8x8 and others that are really leading more and leaning in with CX. So I would expect in maybe 2 or 3 years, we're going to see a lot more of that.
You hit the nail on the head. Their CX evolution has been extraordinary. I think if you think they just launched this product a couple of years ago, their feature set that they're catching up with is great, and they've got a good growth trajectory on it. And I think what they did nice in the AI receptionist addresses this. They're aligning to where they have good traction, which is in that mid-sized to small businesses that are voice centric, voice first, And so their CX product hits that need. Even if I don't have a full call center, I'm a voice-centric brick and mortar business where I have to have someone pick up the phone when they call in a dentist's office or something like that. I think they aligned well with their current strengths, and I think it just gives them an opportunity to continue to grow. Everyone wants those large enterprise businesses. They had their slide of logo wins of very large recognizable brands, but I think they have a lot of growth opportunity they can still take advantage of in that mid-size to small business, and I think that it's a good portfolio for it. I'll also share, to continue off of that, you mentioned the EX product. They did not dig in much in terms of the UC elements of it, but they did, and they said that things are coming here in this upcoming time frame. Faye, by Infocom, I think they mentioned they're going to have some things for us to talk about. But they were talking about their video events, and they showed us some really great products they had there. So this is based upon that Hopin acquisition they did a couple of years ago, rebranded it RingCentral Events, Ring Events. And they've actually now bringing to market some of their investments. One of the ones that I really enjoyed was a Studio, which is it's a pre-event platform that allows people to plan a broadcast quality event or webinar, but it does what it does well, which is brings it down to a very simplified level that you don't need to have an expert, a broadcast expert, to be in there and do this. In fact, this was one of the themes at ISC that I saw, where people are making broadcast experiences more readily available. And what was cool was they were forward thinking in integrating AI through all this. So we're not only talking about doing AI in terms of creating some of the marketing pieces or campaigns, but for actually social bits. I mean, you could take a recorded webinar, use AI, and grab social sized video snaps that you can then continue to promote. They were showing an integration with Canva to help get some of these integrated marketing materials available up front. So I just want to make it, CX was really impressive, but they're not leaving behind their recent investment in Hopin and events, and they showed some good activity there.
And it's much like what Cisco did with Socio, right? Integrating this new idea. And what kind of like the underlying thing to me I like about this is that because you're selling to a different buyer for events, it gives them another opportunity to talk to companies, and of course for channels as well, to say, start the conversation on events, and then you can broaden that into meetings and rooms, and then it becomes part of the EX story. So it just gives them another path into sell, which I kind of liked. Another theme to me that I like was strategy-wise is they focused a lot on, for partnerships, growth through global service providers. And so they have a kind of a good roster right now of tier one carriers, both here in the US and in the EU. And, it wasn't that long ago when they made a lot of noise. Talk about innovation without disruption. How about innovation with disruption? All the partnerships they made with, all the prem-based players, right? Alcatel and Mitel. They kind of cornered the market on that remaining prem-based market that they could kind of convert over. Those didn't ultimately, I guess, guys, those partnerships didn't pan out as great as they kind of thought they would. But I think this is a shift away from that kind of partnership to the service providers, who I think for a long time were all kind of a monopoly of Cisco with Hux, if you remember that. And now, okay, they're kind of making a push. And I think it can be a really good way to, and they talked about this as being like they want to grow from 10 big partners to 100. That's kind of their strategy. So I think they've really focused on this as a really good growth strategy. And I think they're on the mark for that one.
Well, and even within those global service providers, they're expanding also. So a lot of them started with, the UC or EX product, and now they're taking on the CX product, and they're taking on more products. So they're even within those providers, they're expanding. So they're doing really well in that area. But yeah, we didn't hear anything about Avaya, Mitel. There was nothing about those partnerships.
And another reason I mentioned innovation without disruption is, again, why I think that's a good strategy for them is because service providers are generally not known as innovators. They don't come up with these products, but Ring does. And they say, okay, we're addressing a weakness you guys have. in your go-to-market, and I think it's a win-win if they can pull it off.
And it's interesting what you say. There's so much to say about all of that that's just gone before, but certainly about the service providers, we're starting to see a little bit in the pro audio visual space that, this development of service is really, really central. And part of it's to do with what Craig said, this kind of combination of audio visual and workplaces and broadcast applications. We're seeing that really progress, and that's being talked about ISE. It's going to be another big thing for Infocom for sure. And so what we're starting to see is these different services being generated that need to be met, client requirements that need to be met. So the MSP certainly in that space are looking at developing, how do you operate? How do you, run these systems? It's very different to workplace and meeting room technologies that have come before, which are quite intuitive and they should be, and they don't need an operator to manage. But also it's quite interesting what you were saying before, John, just about, the air application, that it's that receptionist and frontline application, as well as the productivity, which we really know comes along with these AI technologies that are coming out. But we're also starting to see in workplaces and meeting rooms and spaces from enterprises that actually AI is being used for, meeting equity and parity and collaboration, and really trying to make sure that that collaboration is at another level. So, we've got that starting to be embedded into hardware and software to really drive that better sort of user experience. And that's really interesting. So there's so many ways that the AI thread is coming through everything here. We're starting to see it at really key trade shows in that AV space, as well as, of course, CX and other areas that we're all working in too.
Superb. So, sticking with the events theme, we've got a lot of events coming up, actually. I'll just list them off, and then we'll have a little chat about a few of them. We have Mobile World Congress is coming up first week of March, followed by the Cavell Summit on the 12th of March. Dom, I'll let you talk about that in a moment. Followed by Enterprise Connect, 17th of March. Channel Partners, let me get my maths right, 24th of March, I believe. And then Comms V Next is in the middle of April. A bit of a gauntlet coming up. So if you thought your travel was done, peeps in the room, it's not done yet. Evan, I believe you're at MWC next week. What are you looking forward to next week?
Yeah, my annual pilgrimage to MWC in Barcelona, one of my favorite places. So I'll be actually doing a demo with Ericsson at the show and showing how my Meta smart glasses can run on a public network slice from Telefonica, actually a live network slice. Network slicing is delivering a dedicated QoS within a network interface to users. So low latency, no jitter, performance issues, unlike your best effort mobile networks. And so that'll be fun to live stream that and demo the network quality performance capabilities that are being delivered to enterprises. And that's kind of a big deal for places like first responders, firefighters, police who need, on-demand, really high quality, non-blocking kind of network access. And, beyond that, the big trend in CX at MWC will be RCS, which is really gaining ground. The interoperability between Apple and Google is mostly now there, and it's going to really light a fire under mobile CX. So if you haven't gotten an RCS message, you can embed images and videos and carousel and have call to action buttons and interactivity. It really is, a huge leap from our basic SMS, which we all know and love or hate. I'm not sure, but brands love it. And they're really going to start leveraging it with the carriers and various providers, the Twilios and Infobips of the world starting this year.
Quickly, just Evan, do you expect to see a lot of talk about 6G there?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk. It's not standardized yet, and we're going to see these factions rather emerging. China's jumping ahead with their own sort of preemptive 6G. There's a lot of research being done on the air interface, terahertz interface, but it's a long way off, and their carriers are already struggling to monetize 5G, let alone invest in an entire new air interface. So it's a 10-year project, I think.
And Dom, of course, Cavell's Summit, the European Summit, coming up on the 12th of March. Give us your quick rundown of what can we all expect to see from that event.
Well, I'd say it's our 10-year anniversary of doing it. So me and Matt were sat back in 2014 going, how do we run our own event? What do we do? And this is our 10 years. So we're expecting around 400 people from across EMEA coming along, which would be great. We got some fascinating topics to delve into, looking at what's next over the next 5 years. We're running our first ever CX Summit as part of that as well. So got the likes of Nice and Nice and Content Guru and Mitel and a whole host of other people coming along to speak. 8x8, Luware. Really interesting kind of side on that as well. So if you're MSP, telco, want to come along, just give us a shout and we can sort that out. We're down in Australia last week doing our first one down there as well. I think your colleagues were joining us down there as well. So it's been a lot of travel. Really excited for our 10-year anniversary for this. So it should be a great event.
Absolutely, and you can catch up on the Cavell's APAC event on the uctoday.com website where we were there. I wasn't, but our colleagues were there covering the site on the ground. So, and then we have, of course, Enterprise Connect. Enterprise Connect has been the kind of the mainstay in the enterprise communications space for a number of years now. It feels like forever. But that event has changed quite a lot, hasn't it? I mean, that's sort of moving to more of a CX sort of contact center style event. Craig, what's your take on that one?
You're right about that. You remember there used to be the day where products were announced at Enterprise Connect. In fact, I think Teams was announced there at one point in time. And what we're seeing now is not only are people moving away from that being a platform for announcements of products, but if you look at the keynotes, there's a lot of them that are really leaning into their CX story, which is, again, goes to the conversation Blair and I were having earlier in this call, which was it's a great growth trajectory right now for these platforms. You can look at Zoom. You can look at what Webex is doing. You can look at RingCentral's going to be up there as well, AWS. A lot of these people are taking a lot of core communication technology and expanding upon some of those platforms to create contact center solutions. So there's a lot of people that are showing up there to actually, it's a great opportunity for industry to customers conversation. But it's not, I wouldn't say it's not a UC show. I'm just saying it is contact centers, customer experience is actually finding a lot of audience there as well.
Fantastic. And of course, you can catch up with all the action on the UC Today website. I think we should leave that there for this month. I'd just like to say thank you so much. I'll go around the room quickly. Dom, Evan, Craig, Blair, John, Faye, and of course, Kieran, thank you so much for sharing your insights this month. And I look forward to our next conversation. I hope to see you all at some of these events soon.